getting this raw foods cafe ready. My nature here on Ocean City Boardwalk. We've got a lot of work ahead of us here, so we've just been getting everything prepared. It's just Ocean City. If you ever been down here, it's just like a
Yep.
summer town. So we're just gonna open in the middle of May. So
So this is your part owner, or
hi, yeah, I'm like the general manager and head chef. So
awesome.
yeah,
Angie, this is Jeremiah.
Hi,
Jeremiah, this is
hi,
Angie.
Jeremiah. Nice to meet you.
too.
I'm excited to hear about this.
Yeah.
So, uh, Jeremiah is this is Jeremiah Martin, and he's on the Live Food Detox Show with Angie and I, and he's going to talk. Yes, hi everybody, uh, and he's going to talk about his journey, how he got where he is today, which is pretty fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people will love to hear this, and part of the reason is people feel stuck sometimes. And Jeremiah is really moving forward in life. And maybe you felt stuck a few times in your life and how you got over that and created where you are now, because that's a huge step forward. And I met Jeremiah in Lansdale, Pennsylvania at Arnold's Cafe.
Oh, okay.
And that
Cool.
was that was the first time. We've only talked to each other for a few hours, basically,
Wow.
but we were like kindred souls when we met, you know. And I don't know. Well, anyway, so this is Jeremiah, and I want Jeremiah to really start telling his story because it's pretty fascinating. What I know of him and where he's going in life is amazing, and I think that it will help a lot of people move on to realize that just because you're a raw foodist doesn't mean that you can't advance in life. I mean, you're an educator, you're a teacher, uh, you're a raw chef, which we have not had raw chef on the show, by the way.
Raw chef. I love it.
So, Jeremiah,
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Gary. Yeah, and maybe even take a look behind the veil ultimately, because with a lot of this, as you know, Gary, a lot of this detox stuff, we're actually really getting into the topic of parasitology, and that's something where I've really been focusing lately. As I speak to vegans and all these different types of subcategories of people, is just a lot of people say, like, and this is kind of where my head's at. A lot of people say, oh, people just have to stop eating meat. Like they have to make that conscious decision. But personally, I don't view it that way. I mean, I really feel like most people are their physical organism is really just a host for parasitic infection, and the parasites, living in the gut, controlling the brain, are really the primary decision makers.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's kind of disgusting, but it's where a lot of this research, especially when we talk about detox, has led me, and I actually think it's the number one way to actually wake people up. So
So, do these parasites hook into the nervous system? Is that how they control us?
yeah, they definitely hardwired through the central nervous system, but I think the study came out in 2009 that showed us that um, our brain works differently than we thought. That our gut is actually like our lower brain, and our brain is like our upper brain. So the parasites live in our gut, and they control all highways, including all the way up to the hemispheres of the brain, by living in the gut. The gut is a battleground between good and bad bacteria. Yeah, I was actually familiar with Gary before we even met at Arnold's Way. The first time I met Gary, I actually told him, I'm a huge fan, and the reason was why I originally got into Gary's message. Gary actually helped me a lot, and we're gonna transition into this point shortly. But a big thing for me and how I found out about Gary and why I think Gary's so great is because his tests and his theories on electrical conductivity, and the fact that a lot of the fruits and vegetables that we're eating, they're really not that conductive. A lot of them are actually very devoid in minerals. And I actually met Gary few years ago, at a troubled point in my raw vegan journey, I found him on YouTube because I realized that a lot of the fruit I was consuming was demineralized. So how I met Gary, how I knew of Gary, and Gary. This is what I just had to start with. Gary really helped me, even though he didn't realize that at that time, because there's not a lot of people, especially a few years ago, talking about heirloom fruit and talking about the processes of hybridization and stuff and such. But I think Gary really hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think this journey really is about getting unstuck. I mean, a huge thing for me, especially we're such a conformist society, and so many of human beings have such a follower gene. We're so afraid to be our authentic self. I was just as conditioned as anybody else, but I always kind of had that, I guess, leadership gene. Certainly was never a follower, and I think that's what ultimately led to the liberation of not only my own body, but my own mind. And I think the key for me has always been, in this journey to getting, as Gary phrased it, unstuck on the journey to my authentic and true self is detaching from old behaviors, bad habits being the huge ones, old friends, not that they're bad people, but that I could see even years ago at the beginning of this journey that our paths were going down completely different directions. And when you're in a city type of environment, there's not a lot of people, young people in their 20s that want to dedicate their lives to health. I mean, most of the cities and even most of America these days is about partying and drugs and a fast life. And after I got out of college around like 22, even when I was still a senior in college, even a junior in college, I really started to dedicate myself to this because this fast life was really catching up with me. This fast life was catching up with me fast. Eating pizzas, drinking beers, that whole thing. I don't know if it's genetic predisposition or what, but for me, it certainly wasn't working. And I noticed, like I said, in my young 20s that I was losing my vitality. So I basically set off on a mission to, figure out what the heck was going on. And for me, I was lucky enough to live only a few miles away from Arnold's Way, Raw Vegan Cafe. And that's where I heard about, raw foods. And that was really the absolute beginning of my journey. And it has been a 7-year journey. In the 7th year now of being vegetarian, I guess 5 years vegan now. And for me, like I kind of say to everyone, there's no lines of separation or segregation for me. It's mind, it's body, it's spirit, it's political. It's all these things. I see a lot of people in the spiritual realm, and they say, "Oh no, don't talk about political." Then I see a lot of people in the political realm, and they say, "Oh no, don't talk about spiritual." And that's really what I've always tried to do is just eliminate these lines of separation that we feel as though these are somehow like different categories of activism, when we're really with food and with politics or any of this stuff, what we're talking about is consciousness. We're literally just talking about our own state of consciousness.
Right. So that's all awesome. That you guys met at Arnold, and how long ago, or when did Arnold open that then?
He's been open for just about over 10 years. He's in his 11th year now. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is that what brought you to being a vegan chef?
Yes. Yeah, Arnold is certainly what introduced me to this whole movement, as a lot of people in the Philadelphia area would say, and it was certainly my introduction. And and I think the biggest thing that led to me being a chef, as I know a lot of the viewers out here can relate to, is just who's going to prepare this food for you? I mean, you make an extreme decision like being an organic vegan or wanting heirloom food and all these different types of demands. Starting out, I didn't have anyone to prepare it for me, so I just realized the only way I could be successful at this is learn to make this stuff myself.
That's awesome.
Now, that world has changed a lot too.
Yes.
Back in the day, when you were a vegan or even a vegetarian, there was hardly anything for anybody to eat. now it's like beyond delicious. I mean, it is incredible how the desire for better tasting vegan and vegetarian food has elevated that to a level that is incredible. And for those who haven't tried it, they really need to, because it is awesome out there now. And there's a lot of minerals and hydration and things that create that energy, that vitality in our body. And that is where Jeremiah is headed, and that I'm just proud to have him as a friend, because he's really, would you say you've been on this 7 years?
Yeah.
And you've gone from pizzas and beer to starting a restaurant and being the chef in that restaurant.
Yeah.
That is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, pizzas, beers, and cheesesteaks, and it's really disgusting to even think about that. But I guess that's all our own growth journey. Got Jeffrey joining me here in the background. This is Jeffery Phillips.
Hi, Jeffrey.
And Jeff is he's actually he's part of the Phillips seafood family, and they're a very famous, one of the largest really seafood families that there are. It's kind of what I've been doing here, living in this community, is that hopefully we're transforming this whole massive seafood family into a total, not vegan family, but My Nature is certainly our first, as we'll get into, their first vegetarian cafe, raw vegan cafe, and we're hoping really to spark this whole evolution with the family here, because there's a lot. There's just so much to it. This is a family that really has the ability to really change a lot of things. So it's really cool. So yeah, Jeffrey's just joining me here in the background. So I just wanted to introduce.
Excellent.
Wow.
Excellent. So, when will your cafe open?
So our cafe will open May 16th, and we'll be open all summer long. We'll be doing great guest lectures and stuff with people like Gary.
Whoa, nice. Like hearing that.
I'm really excited to come down, and I'm putting together the talk now.
Great.
And
Awesome.
Body Electric, Life Force Energy. Who are some of your great influences as you were coming through this? Because 7 years ago, you didn't know anything about this.
The internet then, but it probably wasn't as much as there is now. So yeah, good question.
So for me, the awakening really began spiritually, and that's what it was. Is like I had to the beginning, even before I took back my own body, I had to reclaim my own mind. I had to really truly reclaim my own soul, soul revival, and so for me, the biggest people that contributed to my awakening were, it's funny, Alan Watt and Alan Watts. They're actually two different people, but Alan Watt talks basically about the matrix reality, and he is cuttingthroughthematrix.com, and that really just started me thinking and just breaking down society in my own mind, and really just got me, as he says, reclaiming your own mind and just think about everything for myself. Because what I realized at that crucial time in my life is that we're all basically running on conditioning, and we're going off all these things that we've been told about how Columbus sailed the ocean blue and all these different things, and that, the protein myth, and we need to eat meat for protein, and you need to drink cow's milk and all this stuff. And for me, I just had to truly just start to reclaim my own mind and just owe it to myself to just start to thinking about these issues one by one without giving my power or authority to anything else. So Alan Watt and then Alan Watts. And Gary and I have a lot of the same influences. I know Gary likes Alan Watts a lot too. Alan is translated to the West. He's a master of all things Eastern philosophy, and what he really does is translate that message to the West. So that really started to begin my spiritual awakening. And so my greatest influences were in the beginning were people like Alan Watts and ultimately Terrence Mckenna, people who began my connection back to the earth. And for me, it's also a huge awakening to Native American culture. People like Russell Means was very big. I would say back then Russell Means was probably the biggest. I just started to really dig my roots into the earth. I started to grow my hair. I started to take nature walks. I started to make myself salads. Strictly went vegetarian at that point, and started to do all these things to connect me to the earth and to absolutely change every fiber of who I was as a human being. Like this was my old self. This was my old self that wanted to party and to pursue basically money. We go in these pursuits of society tells us that we're supposed to go after the money and all these different things, and a college graduate has all these notions in their mind. But for me, it was about an absolute awakening and self discovery of awakening to my own soul's purpose and destiny, and most importantly, connecting all that back to the earth. It's like I don't even growing up in the city, like we're not even connected to the earth at all. Like it's literally a concrete jungle. There's nowhere to even take a walk in the park. So a lot of these things that sound so simple really aren't. They really aren't at all. They really aren't. Like when I would talk to my friends about, I'm going to go take a walk in nature. I want to go camping and stuff in the beginning. They would really ridicule me and make fun of me a lot, which was fun. It was funny. Oh, you're becoming this hippie and all this stuff. Okay, okay. I guess that's what it is if we need to label it. But that's really where the journey began for me. And then from there, one by one, I started to find my health gurus as I transitioned this to health. And early on, I had people like Arnold and introduced me to people like Durian Ryder and other different like vegan activists on YouTube. And I started to grow and learn and got to where I'm at today, where I rely heavily on Dr. Brian Clement, Dr. Robert Cassar at Earthship Project, and Dr. Sebi. All people are talking about electric foods, heirloom foods, alkaline foods, mineralized foods, foods grown from the earth, wild edibles, wild herbs. And then, when we talk about cultivation, we're even if we're talking about cultivated crops, we're talking about even first generational or heirloom. And that's where my journey's led me to now. And that's where I'm a bit different than the average person that's just telling you to, maybe eat a banana or an orange. My message is going to be a lot more direct than that about, what type of soil was that grown in? At what point in the season was it picked? What minerals were used in the soil? And most importantly, like, is this fruit even from seed? Is this vegetable even from seed? Because what I've noticed a lot in the vegan and vegetarian movement is just, I just noticed that a lot of these fruitarians are actually eating all hybridized foods. They're eating seedless watermelons and seedless bananas, and they're eating all these dried nuts and all this junk. I mean, it's absolute junk. This people think that these seedless bananas have healing potential. They've been hybridized 75 times. It's not even close to nature anymore. I mean, my point is that. We actually have to find the foods that naturally occur in nature. And you're never going to see, a Cavendish banana that's this big, or a watermelon that I can't even fit my hands on this, a watermelon that's 20 pounds. You're not going to find these things in nature. You're going to find anything close to it.
So, what message would you give people, like, when you first started, okay, and you were going for walks in nature? Were you barefoot at the time? Were you walking barefoot, or when you first started out?
Started to figure that out as I went along.
Okay. But there's so much cultural programming, so much pressure put on people. They might not be able to say what you said, like, yeah, if that's how you feel, great. They actually get swayed and pulled back into that cultural programming. I mean, have you got a message that would help people stand up inside themselves and take charge of their lives?
Ooh, I mean, Gary, you just hit the nail on the head, brother. I'll tell you. I mean, that's it. I mean, folks, we got to start thinking for ourselves. I mean, if you're going to worry your whole life about what your husband thinks or what your boyfriend thinks or your girlfriend or your all your best friends, you got to write it down on a list. Start making yourself a list and think about, what's this person doing in my life? because this is how I speak about it to everyone. We have our old world self, like I told you about my old world self, and my new world self, my new earth self. I had to transition to that new earth self. You have to start evaluating the people in your life. Do they want you to stay in your old paradigm, or are they going to help you evolve and into your new paradigm? Because what we want are friends and lovers and associates that support us in our evolutionary journey, not people that try to hold us back in our old paradigm. And that's where I say you got to be very cautious of not only your own mind, but your own inner circle. Because what I realize is we are who our friends are. That's what your closest group of friends, you all have the same normalcies and ideologies and values and customs. Like, you have things that are centric to your relationship. And those are the things that often actually lock us in chains. And those are the things that we have to break the mold on if they no longer suit our alignment with our highest self, or this new version of ourself that's evolving. And that's what I see, Gary, all the time. That's why I say hit the nail on the head. Are people are really afraid to put the past behind. They're really afraid to put the past behind. They're really afraid to let it all go. And it ends up, we talk about evolving and all that stuff, but we just stay trapped in old paradigms because we're not ready to move on from that boyfriend or whatever, or that girlfriend because of fear, just simply because we fear the unknown.
It's funny, I was just talking about this I literally just did a post on this about fear that came up, and I was like, that's what it is. We're so scared, and we get stuck in it's too hard to change because we don't know what's on the other side, and we don't have this, I guess for me, it's personally jumping out of what I've known for all of my years of doing my career and jumping into something completely different and going, oh my God, yeah, that's what I want, but oh my gosh, where's I told Gary, where's the money coming? We always have to think about, unfortunately, where's the money gonna come and something like that, Same thing with our bodies. It's like, we don't know what's gonna happen. But detox, oh my God. I mean, Gary has seen the stuff that's happened with me, and oh my God, I don't know if I would have done it if I would have known, but yes, I would. I totally would have, because I now know and understand, okay, this is what happens, and we do have to get ourselves a little bit educated and know, okay, this is kind of the way that it's going to go, and we may not know, we may not have those answers, and we just have to go with it and trust that we know what we're doing, and what we feel inside is not going to steer us wrong. And I think that's where a lot of people, especially in group, are realizing, oh, once we start to listen to our body, it's not going to lie to us. It knows.
It does know. It's going to kick your butt if you don't do what it wants you to.
Yeah.
And so we've been off balance for so long, well, our whole lives, basically. Finding our way back to balance. Do you think that's really key, Jeremiah?
Yeah, back to homeostasis. And I think that's really what the whole journey is about. And not just, and mentally and psychologically and emotionally. I mean, emotionally is so key. I mean, emotions is, I think, one of the things that's not talked about enough, and how we handle our emotions.
Well, I have a question for you. If you're off emotionally, does it really matter what you eat?
Not at all. Not at all. Because I've already gone through this when I first started going raw and making all my own foods, and I would make these delicious smoothies because and I'll get to this in my little personal introduction too. Is that I started this whole journey after college in the natural food industry. I knew that I wouldn't take any job for a corporation that didn't support the well-being of humanity or anything like that. I already had this passion to heal and natural foods and stuff. So before I got into just dedicating myself to be a chef and all this, I've been in the natural food industry for years, building raw and organic brands. So my first job was with Herbal Water, Ayala's Herbal Water, which is I was their director of customer service as soon as I got out of college, and so I would drive into Philadelphia where they were stationed from the suburbs. It was 30-40 minute drive, but tons of traffic, so it turns into easily an hour drive, just fighting traffic the whole way. And I realized right there, I knew that I would make these beautiful pitchers of smoothie, and then I'd bring them in the car with me, and you'd be dealing with all this, not letting it digest properly, sitting down the whole time in, which is another thing. You definitely want to stand up when you're drinking your smoothies and stuff as much as possible. sitting down in this car, driving the whole way with all this stress around me, and I just knew something was completely off. If you have stress in life, like if you just get in a fight with your wife or your husband while you're eating, at dinner, the whole thing's useless. I mean, that stress level, that stress vibration is exactly what goes into the food, and it's not hard to convince people that we all feel it immediately, and not only in digestion and assimilation and the results afterwards, but the number one, the absolute number one reason is you're actually going to see your appetite disappear. You get upset and you get all emotional and upset, your appetite disappears. I mean, your body is telling you, no, don't eat food in this state because it's just pointless. You're causing a lot more stress on the body than any type of food.
Yeah. What do you think about when we are emotionally stressed? The energy of our body is going out into the universe, basically, because we're projecting that anger. And if we eat, 60% of our energy needs to go to digest our food. Well, it can't go both directions. So we end up cutting ourselves off electrically, and we can't digest our food properly, and then over time I feel that's gonna give us problems. What do you think of that?
Exactly. I mean, all I can do is just say exactly there, Gary.
Yeah, yeah. So how have you changed your meals over the past you've been a chef for what? How many years now?
Throughout the whole journey was a process, but over the last 3 years, I've been really just concentrating everything professionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are those combinations of foods changed as you've grown?
Yeah, huge. Food combining is such a key. When we realize certain nut milks, and all that stuff in our fruit smoothies. I mean, we simply can't eat nuts and things like that with fruits. But for me, it really started with my green smoothie being almond breeze, almond milk, sweetened, and then you get to unsweetened almond breeze, almond milk. Then you eventually realize, then you get out of that, and I went to a Califia Farms almond milk. Then I just realized that pretty much all store-bought nut milk was not only a ripoff, but a dead pasteurized product filled with carrageenan and other preservatives, even though it says no preservatives and stuff like that. So you get into all this. So everything changed. Everything has changed for me. It's been a growing process as I don't cling to, or try not to cling to, these old paradigms that I know exactly what I'm doing. I constantly look for my fallibility, and I constantly look to see where I can improve myself. I don't try to say, because that's what the ego wants to do. The ego wants to cling to almond breeze and say, oh, well, I've been doing it this way, so this is right. Or the ego wants to cling to the Cavendish banana and say, well, I've been eating this for 6 years. That means that for the last 6 years, I've been doing it wrong. But that's what we have to admit. And it's the same thing when I began my journey cutting out all the processed foods and meats and pizzas and beers and all that stuff. We literally have to have the ability to admit that we were wrong. And it's a beautiful journey when we're conversing with our own ego. It's a beautiful journey to silence what we think is ourself, which is really just a complete and utter illusion, fabrication that controls not only our whole lives, not only every day, but for most people, every second, every thought of your waking life. So for me, it started with the almond breeze and the Cavendish bananas, and at least I was doing organic greens and things like that, but it just continued to progress and get better as I searched for better, greater and greater results. And the reason why I got away from hybridized fruit is I was completely raw at the time and was really suffering a lot from candida, kind of a lot of itchiness. So through the Arnold's Way community and things like that, through different people, Durian Ryder and stuff, their solution was always, well, just eliminate everything else. Just keep eating more bananas. Just keep eating more bananas. Simplify your diet. So I was like, well, I'm already eating, 15 bananas a day. Might as well up it to 20 to 25 and really see, if this is their philosophy, this is what I do. I'll do it. I'll try it and see where. And I tried it for a long time, and there was a bit of ego refusal and that whole battle that has my greatest medicine become my greatest poison? And this is what I've worked with several people as we step away from Cavendish bananas. We've all said the same thing, that at one point this was our medicine and now it's clearly our poison. And I could see that the more bananas I ate, the worse that the itching and the candida got. So I made a vow to cut out these hybridized bananas, and that's when I discovered Gary and started looking in the work of Dr. Sebi more, and people talking about heirloom fruit. Even David Wolf talks about it. Dr. Brian Clement talks about it. Dr. Robert Cassar talks about it. That's when all these different people started to emerge in my life as I started to put out a different frequency. I was admitting I was wrong and saying, what else can I learn here? Bananas are not the end all be all. Where can I grow, Spirit? Like, please show me the answers, because I care so much. I care so much, and I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong. So that's just been that constant journey of evolution.
And to accept. This is something that we see all the time, and I want to know if you see that too, Jeremiah. People are looking for, they want to eat one orange and be healed. And or 3 weeks later, or even, it doesn't matter. If they have such a hard time because they're sick. I mean, I understand that. And there's brain fog involved. So they're not thinking clearly as it is. So they're starting to follow just about everybody and anybody. That's how I feel. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. People. People, and that's kind of what we first said right off the bat. I mean, a lot of people are just looking for someone to follow, and that's good if they can point you in the right direction. But the ultimate goal is for you to reclaim your own mind and start making all these critical decisions yourself.
Listen to your own body.
Yeah,
because every body is a different chemistry set, and what works for me might not work for you.
That's a good point, Gary, because the whole, eat an orange, okay, I'm better now. My sister kind of ended up in that situation here recently. She ended up back in the hospital with heart issues again. And I talked with her a few days after being in the hospital, out of the hospital, in the hospital, out of the hospital. And I said, what happened this time? And she had started doing the juicing a little bit. She's been working with a functional doctor. She lost some weight. She was feeling a lot better, just doing better. And she had talked with one of her doctors about, I believe, a test that they wanted to run, and it meant something about going off of these 2 meds that she's been taking for her heart. And she was all about it. She'd been wanting off these meds forever. So she stopped in cold turkey, said, I felt, I've been eating better. I feel like maybe I am better. Yeah, that's something that people need to realize too. Like, you don't, when you're starting out and, you've been diagnosed with, say, heart issues and or, adrenal fatigue, and this isn't something that you want to just start messing with meds with and just stopping them. She ended up, like I said, in the hospital, heart issues again. Thankfully, didn't have to crack her open again, but it's definitely not just a simple couple weeks, couple months deal. You jump in and you got to take the ride, and it's going to be a while.
Yeah. You got to be willing to change your habits and to change your lifestyle. Otherwise, you're just kidding yourself. Everyone's looking for this magic pill, and
that goes right back to your circle of influence.
Yeah.
Because they're all trying to pull you back into their lifestyle, which is the lifestyle that got you sick in the first place.
Yeah.
No hydration, no minerals. I mean, it's all dead food, dead liquids, dead body.
That's it.
And it takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight. I had a question I wanted to ask you in my explaining that, I forgot it. But as people are journeying forward and they're eating organic if they can, we have to do the best we can. That's one thing. And the electrical conductivity in the body is hydration and minerals. And if your hydration and your minerals are off, your electrical current is going to be off and your body's off. And that's how you get sick, basically. pH is an electrical current. Very few people know that. So when we eat hybridized or seedless, can you explain the difference between that and organic, something that's grown in the ground, that's sterile, not sterile, but full of vitality and life, and it has a seed in it that will actually reproduce itself, where a hybridized won't do that, or a GMO won't do that.
Right. I mean, I'll give a couple examples. I mean, let's start with something like the blueberry. Blueberries, no matter what, it's a pretty safe option, even if it's a cultivated organic blueberry. The simplest tip I give folks is you got to look at size. Like a wild blueberry in nature is half of the size of a regular blueberry, and this is the key. Same thing with wild strawberries and organic. Look at those Driscoll's, because I've been to the Driscoll's organic plant out in California many times. I used to live right by there. It's an absolute joke. You wouldn't believe how your organic strawberries from Driscoll's are grown. I would never tell you to never eat anything from Driscoll's. It's a joke. I mean, it's so this isn't. These are certified organic, but it's not an organic process at all. It's just that's a whole nother story. But so you get these freaky organic strawberries, and of course the conventional ones are doused in hundreds of pesticides and rodenticides and herbicides and fungicides. So those are far worse. So I'm not promoting those either. But what's funny is the wild strawberries are trying to come up right in your own backyard, and we're trying to cut out the vines, and it's invasive and all. I mean, this is where we're at. We're going to cut out the wild medicinal strawberries that are growing in our own yard, and then we're going to go buy this plastic package of these manipulated, hybridized strawberries and think that we're healing ourselves. And it's the same thing. Like, if it's not sustainable for the earth, it's not sustainable for you. Like, we need to tap into our own backyards. I mean, if you're not growing anything in your backyard or participating in local cooperatives and farm shares and stuff, then you're not getting it, and you're not healing either. Because if you're shopping at the grocery store, I can guarantee you your options aren't that great. Your options certainly aren't that great. So just to kind of answer your question specifically, though, Gary, that's examples about blueberries and strawberries. These are strawberries, and I can give you a million examples, but the blueberries and strawberries have been hybridized and cultivated to be sweeter and to be less seedy and to be larger, because they're sold by their weight. So they want them to be larger so they can sell for more. So this is when we look at modern day, fruit cultivation, is that we get into seedless. It's all convenience food. So they want it to be larger so it can sell for more. They want it to be sweeter so people are more content with it, just like everything in America. And they want it to be absolutely, seedless, so it's more convenient and everything like that. So this is what we got to get back to is, what's a real fruit? What's a real fruit? Like an orange, you want like a Neville, like an orange that's actually from seeds. We talked about banana. We talked a little bit about watermelon. Like, watermelon's a perfect example. You walk up to the produce clerk and say, "Hey, do you have seeded watermelon?" And he'll go, "Yeah, the seedless watermelon's right there." "No, sorry, sir or ma'am, I didn't say seedless. I said seeded." Huh? They deal with questions like this every day in and day out, but they never hear this one. They're baffled. They might say it to you a second or third time. "You mean seedless, right?" No, I mean seeded. And this is where we're at. Like, the true answer is to ultimately stop shopping at the grocery store. But I don't say any of this. This stuff is for education. It's not to stress you out. Like Gary said, you want to absolutely do your best. So if you're doing your best, you truly want to do your best too, because that's not just, you don't just say, "Oh, I'm doing my best," but but you want to strive to do your best. But once you start stressing yourself out about it, and it becomes kind of like an obsessive compulsive thing, and you realize that you're losing yourself emotionally and psychologically over it, now you've gone too far down the other. That's when you need to start relaxing and just focus on doing your best. But the thing is that nature will do it all for you. Drop some seeds in the earth, the sun comes out, the rain falls. I mean, this is what we all need to do. So modern day fruit cultivation, what happens is, just to say this briefly, is the process of hybridization with a banana. You take something that was originally like a wild banana, or in this instance, let's use like wild carrot, like our carrots, today. There's no such thing as this carrot that we see today in nature. Carrot is a hybridization of wild carrot and Queen's Anne lace, and they hybridize these two plants together to create what we know today as the modern day carrot. And then from there, it's cultivated and cultivated and cultivated, like we said, to be and hybridized to be sweeter, to be larger, so it can sell for more profit in this whole thing. So everyone talks about carrot juice and all this stuff. So this isn't even from the earth. Like, this is carrot is a man-made food. Look at a big pineapple, and then you see at the grocery store, you see these little teeny baby pineapples. That's a real pineapple. So I think that kind of answers the question, is that it's just through cultivation, and we're not at all thinking about our health. People would think, we should be thinking about it. No, the farmers aren't thinking about the health, and it's not their fault, but they're thinking about profits so they can sell it, to the grocery stores and all this, and that's what it's about. Nothing's being done in our health. It's all being done so everyone can get by, pay the bills. We all know the deal. So that's what's been lost, and that's why what you get at the grocery store is junk.
Right. It's not picked ripe.
Oh gosh, exactly.
Because they have to ship it for 14 days, and they don't want it to fall apart on the way.
Right.
So it's generally acidic. And it is fermenting. That's why it appears to be ripe, but it doesn't have that real sweet. Like, if you go pick something off a tree that's ready to be picked, there's a whole different flavor and electrical frequency in that. I have a hard time with these earpieces here. But anyway.
That's the key, though, Gary, because that's the one thing I didn't mention, too, is that in that last stage of ripening is when the minerals actually form and really concentrate into the fruit. The minerals is the last stage, and that's what the fruit is so deficient in. It's got all its sweetness, what everyone wants, but that's why, on these high fruit diets of hybridized fruits, you run into candida, which is excess sugar in the blood, is because it doesn't have its subsequent minerals to help absorb and complexify the glycemic release of those sugars. So we just get that bam, that explosion, that sugar high all at once because there's no minerals, and that goes right back to when it's picked from a tree, and everyone says, Dr. Brian Clement and Hippocrates Institute, demonizes all fruits and all sugars, and to an extent they certainly do. But what Brian Clement is saying, that if you're picking your fruit way too early, that it's even if it's heirloom in that instance, you're not allowing the time for the fruit to develop its minerals, so it's going to be way too. It's going to be way too high in sugar, and it's going to feed the yeast, mold, and bacteria in your bodies that cancer. That you're going to be feeding. You're going to be feeding what I call your cleaner up system. I mean, you're putting dirty things in the body, so then your body has to clean it up. And then we're under the illusion that we're actually healing ourselves.
Yeah, very good information on that. That's for sure. But Jeremiah, I'm kind of curious as far as Jeffrey goes. Since he's come in and kind of hanging out back there, we can all kind of see him. And so, how long have you guys known? And I know you said you were working on, working the seafood into more of a vegan, raw diet. How is that going for him and his family?
Exactly. Yeah, they're the owners of Phillips Seafood. They're a very large brand. They have their crab meat all over, lots of restaurants and different things. They're huge here on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And Jeffrey was fortunate enough to marry Janet. And after that, Janet went vegetarian and really wanted Jeffrey, her husband, to come along for this ride. So they are the trendsetters in the family. And then from there, Janet launched this raw vegan restaurant. And it's certainly, a little bit of conflict. I mean, it's very different than when part of the family starts to open a raw vegan restaurant, amongst a monstrous, pioneering family, in the seafood industry. So I think what we're really trying to do at My Nature is just do our absolute best, show the family that this can be sustainable, this can be profitable, and the fact that this is actually the new wave. This is the new earth. That these oceans have been overfished, that they've been overcrabbed. There is no crabs left. I mean, Jeffrey's brother had to go around the world and start all these crab plants in all these different nations. I mean, he's actually very responsible. He lobbied Congress for the whole thing, for this, international, crab plants. So people on the Eastern Shore could even get their crabs, because the fact is that there is no crabs anywhere around here. They've been gone for decades. So they're actually all coming from crab farms. So it's not a sustainable business. It's not healthy. It's a dying business, and truthfully, a lot of these businesses aren't making any money. So what we're trying to do, and that's my big thing, because I'm also an entrepreneur. I studied entrepreneurship at the University of San Francisco. Is really turn this into a successful and profitable business, and hopefully set this. My goal is to help set this model up for the future and the family, so we can, because we have all the tools that an entrepreneur wants, and so we're really just that's my goal, is to really knock it out of the park with My Nature this summer, and who knows what the future will bring.
Do you mind sharing with us a little bit about Jeffrey? And it looks like he's obviously got a health condition.
I'd love to. Yeah, Jeffrey was studying at the University of Cornell when he was 21, and he was ran over by an 18-wheel tractor trailer. The tractor trailer was just got done like on a 17-and-a-half-hour trip across the country, and the guy was actually parking. He was parking in the rest stop, and he pulled out of the rest stop and was kind of fixing his parking spot, and he pulled out of the rest stop onto the highway, the front of his truck, as he was backing in, and Jeffrey came around the corner at a regular speed, but he couldn't see the truck who was on the highway, and Jeffrey pulled around the corner and smashed into him at whatever about the speed limit was. And Jeffrey, at 21 years of age, was in a coma for 100 days. He lost a lot of his brain capacity. He's gained a lot of it back, but he's still it's like tremors and shakes and stuff. But the thing, Jeffrey is a complete intellectual. I mean, he was studying free energy back then in the 70s, so he's a really great pioneer for all this. He's kind of in a tough place between me and Janet and our vegan activism, and his family, and he kind of is the middle ground between it all. So we definitely tread lightly there, and but it's really interesting journey. Jeffrey helps us a lot as far as he loves to talk numbers with me and the business, and he really gets all that, but he doesn't have all motor faculties. He can walk a little bit, but he's very unsteady on his feet, and he does have things like short-term memory loss and stuff from the accident, but he is the heir to the Phillips throne here, and I think Jeffrey's pretty much really on. Would you say you're on board for this? He's given his on board for everything we're doing here. He's happy to eat vegan every day. He complains a little bit when I give him all raw. He still loves his cooked. He loves his warm meals. He loves his potatoes and everything, but he's game. He's absolutely game, and I certainly wouldn't be here without him.
That's awesome. Thank you for being here, Jeffrey. It's nice to have you. Nice to hear your story, too.
Absolutely. And that goes back to change. Because it's hard for them to change, because that's what they know. Same thing with each individual as they're trying to shift from their current diet and being sick. And I know what I was going to ask you, bringing that up. Your meal plans do the exact opposite in the body to what medications and cooked food do. Can you explain the difference between what your foods do in the body and what cooked food and medicines do in the body?
Yeah, it's like the cooked foods. When we cook foods, we're cooking the enzymes out of them. which the enzymes is what helps us to digest. The enzymes are basically like a code. It's like if you think about, if anyone's into computers and stuff, they're a code. There are codes for digestion and there are code for assimilation. So when we destroy that code, it's really hard for the body to assimilate that code back together because the structure of that code has been completely denatured. So the body does its best to reassemble that code, but we're putting a lot of strain on it. Most cooked food is dead food. So even once we get away from eating, meats and dairy and seafood and all this stuff, a lot of people are still, then they get on wheat and corn and all these hybridized starches, which is still, that's the worst of the cooked food, and that's still absolute dead food. It's not at all of a healing vibration. And it might be a good step in transition from getting away from the worst of the worst, but it's by no means healing. So the foods that I promote, certainly, like Arnold says at Arnold's Way, it's not necessarily the foods, or even for me as an herbalist, the herbs that heal. It's the body that heals. It's the foods and the herbs that put us back into a natural state of homeostasis. And from there, the body heals itself. And that's all we want to do, is we want to spend less energy on digestion. That's really the key. Digestion. Is that, even a lot of the raw vegans, what are they eating mostly? Nuts. Total 80% high-fat diet. Very hard to digest. 6 hours to digest, where your heirloom fruit digests in about half hour, less than an hour. So this is what we feel. This is what we feel on a molecular, on a cellular level. So as far as medications are concerned, wow. I am certainly not a big supporter really of any medication or really anything as far as Western medicine. I'm not saying everyone should get cold turkey off all their meds, but and I'm sure Guy agrees in terms of the Native American philosophy of healing and stuff. Like, Westerners in these practices, we treat symptoms. We don't pay any attention to the cause of the disease, and we just treat symptoms. And the way we heal is to pretend that the symptoms go away so other ones can arise. So I think once you really get into all that, the whole thing, the way they, no disrespect to doctors and stuff, but the way they even treat their patients and the way they handle disease in the body, it just makes absolutely no sense to me. And I think there's proven millions of cases that it absolutely doesn't work. They don't heal anybody. They really don't heal. They get millions of chances, and who do they even heal? It's
no, the body heals itself. I had another one that slipped away too, because I got lost in your answer there, which was excellent. Live foods are astringents that help the body eliminate through the 13 channels of elimination, and medication it stagnates the body. It restricts it from eliminating, and over time, it goes deeper and deeper into the tissue when they do that. And it's harder and harder to get rid of when you do start eating astringents. And you try to get that stuff out of the body. And the deeper in it is, depending on where it is, if it's in your lungs, you can have cold and flu-like symptoms. If it's in your kidneys, you're going to have probably some pains in your back. And finding that balance between that, rather than just go cold turkey and just start. Some people are so congested, so stagnant in their body, that when you start putting liquids in and it starts flowing, unless your kidneys are working, you're going to have some blowback. So how do you help people find that balance?
Well, let's go back to Arnold Kaufman here, because I might not agree that Cavendish, we can live off a Cavendish banana diet, but what I totally agree with Arnold, and where I realize that Arnold's like a shaman and an energy healer, is what he talks about is we got to love ourselves. He goes, like, when people come in his door, he makes them hug themselves. And that's where this all begins with, like, you have to have motivation first. Like this is it's a hard journey to change all your old habits, to change your old friends, to throw out everything in your fridge. All this stuff is not that easy, especially for a lot of people. So you gotta have motivation coming from somewhere. I mean, something's really gotta motivate you. For me, it was being lied to. I didn't like that I was lied to my whole life. I didn't like that at all. And I said that if this system is gonna lie to me, and even when I exposed the lies to other people, they still want to believe them. Like that just didn't work for me. That was my motivation. That was my catalyst. I think a lot of times your disease, your sickness, and all this stuff, it has to become the catalyst for your awakening. It's not happening because you're a bad person or because it's I mean because of karma. It is necessarily in karma, but it's all a good thing. That as Joseph Campbell says, every perceivable problem is in truth just an opportunity for evolution. Every perceivable problem is just an opportunity for evolution. Okay, there are no problems. These problems are all just opportunities, and that's how we have to start perceiving things. And from there, so you get diagnosed with cancer. Okay, well here's your opportunity, and let that cancer, let that disease, let that arthritis, let that diabetes, let these diagnosed conditions be your motivation. And then from there, once you have that motivation, you're going to start loving yourself. You got to start looking yourself in the mirror. I would say because most people don't love themselves. I mean, that's where we're really starting with a lot. And we really can't start talking about healing because no one's going to do it if they don't love themselves first. So how I started to love myself was I had to think about, I know this is kind of a side topic here, but I do think it's important. I got a picture of me when I knew I used to love myself when I was a little boy. So I got a picture as far back as I can remember when I used to love myself. I got a picture of me when I was a little boy, about 4 years old, and I started to connect with that inner child. I started to connect with that being and started to say, hey, what got lost here? What happened? And, my inner self told me that you're more resilient than any of your mates, any of your schoolmates or anything, but eventually the conditioning broke you. And I think that is what the system does, is it tries to break us. And then once we're broken and once we're not, because we all come into this planet with an inner knowing, with a true sense of knowing everything. So the conditioning process and the indoctrination really has to break that. It has to break our infiniteness. It has to break our consciousness of all knowing. And like it does in all children, and then it breaks us, and then we start to really trust the system blindly. And for me, that's what my inner self told me, is that I had to get back to trusting me and loving me, and so I connected with that inner child, and I started to work on that. And from there, I started to spend days, not whole days, but I would do this day by day as an exercise. I'd look at myself in the mirror, and I'd tell myself over and over again as I look myself in the eyes, I love you. I love you. I love you unconditionally. I love you. I love you unconditionally. And that's really when my awakening really started to begin. Because it's all happening on an emotional level. And then I had something to connect to. I had infiniteness to connect to. I had divinity to connect to. I was an empowered human at that point. We can use all our downpression and all this incarceration and like I said, like oppression and all these different things. You can use all this to be your motivating factor. Really, you have to. Really, you have to. They're not things that should hold you down, that you should feel guilty. You got to let go of all that stuff and start to use that as the fuel to your fire, because that's why it's there. It's only there to fuel your fire and to give you a story, to give you the tale of the hero's journey. You are going to become the hero in your own epic tale. And no one else is going to be the hero in your epic tale, in your savior and your own reclamation of your own soul. So you really need to step up to your own plate and be the batter. No one else is going to do it for you. So that's why I just thought, Gary asked me a question. I kind of go way off the track, but it's like, in this instance, like I've done this for too long. I can look people in the eyes and know if they're down to try to heal themselves or not. It's quite simple. You can tell in the first couple seconds. You can tell right in the first couple seconds. So I know. I mean, there's no playing games with people. I mean, and that's why Arnold really emphasizes you gotta love yourself, because otherwise you're just wasting our time. Otherwise you're just gonna end up right in the McDonald's drive-through, you know, on a fast track to your own death. And everyone says, oh well, everyone's going to die. Yeah, but everyone's going to die, but who's going to truly live? Because this health journey isn't about living forever, and because that's part of it, but it's not about, oh, I want to live to 130 or 100 or 230. No, the journey is about living right now, here in the moment, and feeling great day by day. So then you don't have to chase the alcohol on the weekends. You don't need to chase this pleasure and this pleasure and this pleasure, because you're always feeling like crap, and you're constantly putting your being in this state, your frequency, your being, you're making yourself suffer. You're literally tormenting yourself with the decisions you're making on a day-by-day basis, with stress, with what time you get up in the morning, with the fact that you don't hydrate yourself, with the poor food choices that you make, the fact that you sit on the couch, the fact that you and watch TV, the fact that you don't exercise. All these things is what make you up as a being now. So those are all the stuff that we have to break if we're even gonna if we're even gonna fool ourselves even to think that we're even gonna begin this journey. I'm sorry, I'm passionate, but it's like
No.
I speak this way
That
to
was
motivate.
that was
to motivate.
perfect.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Yeah.
And there is no wrong direction in these conversations. People needed to hear what you said,
Yeah.
and that's why you went there. It wasn't part of the plan. It doesn't matter. It was, people need to hear it. We need to hear it.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, is people listen to this interview and get inspired and then shut it off, and they're going to walk right back into the matrix, and they're going to see the commercials, and they're going to be influenced by their friends, and they're going to get pulled back in, and finding, like you and I, or Terrence Mckenna or Alan Watts, pretty much all the time, and whenever we can, because it's inspiring, and it dissolves those barriers of cultural programming, and we seek it. But as soon as you stop that, you walk back out, and it's politics, and who got killed over here, and you're going out for burgers and beer tonight, and there's a lot of pressure there, you know? So, I mean, as people watch these, they need to come back and watch them over and over again. Any book that inspires you, don't read it once, read it 20 times. Once a year, once every 6 months, or whatever that is, because you're trying to build a new pathway. And there was another thing I wanted to talk about, is the cost of organic versus the cost of dead food. Because when we eat, and I'm trying to make this a question so you can answer it. When we eat dead food, we're not getting minerals and enzymes and electrolytes and all this stuff. We end up eating how much more food versus less food with live food, right? Our body can run better, more efficient on less. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, so in terms of cost, we're not talking about monetary cost. We're talking about cost on the total of the body.
And monetary, because everybody's saying organic is so expensive.
Right, and that's one of the parts that I want to address. It's funny. Organic's so expensive. Right? If you're shopping at the grocery store and because how it works in the natural food industry is the supplier, this grower, then sells it to a distributor, and the distributor then sells it to a wholesaler, and then the wholesaler sells it. This is a minimal way. Then the wholesaler sells it into the natural food store. So the reason why it's expensive is because each person needs to make about 20 to 25% markup, or it's not worth them doing business. So each three parties marks it up 25%. So that's why then it gets us almost 100% markup. It's over 75% markup at that point at least. So that's why it is so expensive. But organic food doesn't cost anything at all. It's actually completely free. You save your seeds, and you drop them right ahead in the earth. And I never heard of anyone paying. Have you, Gary, ever heard of anyone paying a dime to do it that way?
No.
Maybe a little bit of water, should put to water your crops. But that's it, and that's the only way. Like this interview and all this is for people that actually want to heal. So if you want to heal, and this is what enough of the vegans and stuff aren't talking about, is you got to stop shopping at the grocery store. You have to make it your goal to slowly wean yourself off the grocery store, and you can still pick up things there like I get some frozen wild blueberries at the grocery store, things like that. Like there are things that you can fit in, but ultimately you got to have your mind state to be. And I wish someone would have told me this in the beginning of my journey. Is that your mind state isn't to get all this organic stuff at the grocery store because it's all an illusion. Your mind state needs to be getting it out of your own backyard. Start looking into wild edibles. Start understanding foraging. Start realizing that the same diseases that you're suffering from, the earth knows. When you take your shoes off and walk in your backyard, start walking on your earth. I mean, start walking in your backyard and with your shoes off, and guess what? You know what's actually going to happen? The medicines that you actually need, the herbs that you need, your body through your feet is going to send these impulses into the earth, and the earth's going to know what you need, what you're sick from, and those herbs are going to start to come up. And we see it all over. I mean, in our backyard here, we've got our whole backyards in Ocean City dedicated to wild edibles and wild plant walks, and we got dandelion and yellow dock and all these great healing medicines. And it's funny, you go into these natural food stores and you'll pay $30-$40 for a little vial of dock, and it's like, wow, it's just coming up in your own backyard. So this is just the things we got to connect to if we're really gonna start healing ourselves. Is start to connect to the earth, start to understand wild edibles, start to understand organic gardening, and start to understand that the reason that you're doing that is not just to be sustainable but to the degree that you're healing yourself, it's the same exact degree that the earth is healing. So that's why it's beautiful. The whole thing doesn't work. That we can't get a healing vibration off a produce truck. It's great, shipped around the world, because that's not sustainable anyway. That's toxic petrochemical fuels and waste just being dumped all over the planet and stuff. So, well, it's just funny how the whole thing just works like a perfect circle. And what heals us is what heals the earth. And it's really
and we are connected. The electromagnetic field that is around the earth is the same electrical field that's in us. That's how it reads us and sends up the herbs that we need to heal our body. And they're in your yard and they're free. And you get things like, well, the dog might have peed on that. Wash it off.
Because the plant doesn't think about that. Like the plant, think about dog pee. Like the dog pee doesn't go right into the roots of the plant and the plant absorbs it all. The plant takes what it needs. Like there's even nutrients in dog pee. So if there's certain nutrients there, the plant could take it. It's not like, oh, this is dog pee. Everything's broken down at a molecular level. So it's just like, the plant's not going to pull in any toxins. Obviously, it's not going to bring that into the plant. So, I mean, even if the dog did pee on it, that's absorbed in the soil. If the plant found any of that elements in it beneficial, it would extract it. If not, it's not going to bring it in. So it's not even anything to worry about.
Well, thank you, Jeremiah, for all of this. We are up to or past our time, I guess. We could talk forever, obviously. I think we'd both love to have you back anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
The second that you got on screen, your smile and eyes, oh my gosh, your energy is amazing. So thank you for coming and talking with us. And Jeffrey as well, thanks for being here.
You so much for listening.
I just want to say, a quick word to folks. What I really think the key is, in this diet is, what is your calorie source? This is the one thing we didn't mention is just you got to understand that the calories are fuel for your body. So we're eating greens, we're eating all these vegetables. There's no calories in them. So you got to get yourself accustomed to what is your calorie source. And I kind of made this little thing up in my head where it's like, I noticed that all raw foodists are either a nutarian or a fruitarian, basically. Your primary source of calories are coming from one or the other. So you really have to start just bathing yourself in the truth of the whole situation and where your calories going to come from, because if we're not thinking about calories, then what we start to do is we become calorically deficient, and we start to binge, because the body, even if calories aren't important, your body's not going to go to sleep at night without getting a certain set number of calories. It's all a machine. So otherwise, yeah, okay, you don't need anything all day, you're breatharian, and then at the end of the night when no one's looking, it's mouthfuls and nuts and raw vegan desserts, and then you don't realize it, but you just took in 1,700 calories just like that, through the raw vegan cheesecakes, and it's raw, and I mean, I think a lot of times we're just fooling ourselves. So that's how you get in that good habit, right from the beginning of the day. And like today, for example, it's 2:00 here. I haven't ate anything yet today. It's called break fast for a reason. You're breaking a fast. So in the morning is all about water and minerals, elixirs, hydrating the body, and that's how we really need to start.
Well said.
Yeah. Thank you. Jeffrey, he was about to say something.
He was saying thanks for having us. He was really happy to join us here. And yeah.
Wonderful.
All right.
I'm so blessed to know it's Gary. Oh, you individually is so special, because I for sure enjoy this.
Said good luck for sure in everything you do, and he's so blessed to know all the listeners and both of you individually, Gary and Angie. He's so happy to be here with us, and so graced to know everyone.
Thank you.
Amazing meeting you too. We loved seeing you and hearing you and having you as part of the show.
Yes. Thank you.
We're lucky. I'm sorry for happening again.
I'm actually going to get to meet you right off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to be down there.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
You're welcome here anytime.
Thank you.
One big honor to have you and your girlfriend to stay down here at the house with us. Thank you for staying.
He'd be honored to have you down to the house.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to being there. I can tell you that. I'm looking forward to it. All right. So, thank you, Jeremiah.
Yes.
Looking forward to doing this again.
Yeah.
After you get the restaurant open, I don't know how we could do it, but maybe you could film one of your favorite recipes. Or I can when I'm down there. Is the kitchen running enough so that in July we'll film one of your favorite recipes, and when we do the next show, I'll put it in the interview.
Oh my gosh, 1 or 5 or 10 or yes,
Yeah.
all of them. Please. Awesome.
So, all right, because promotion is what we're all looking for, and letting people know that there is life out there, and it is beautiful, and connecting. That's what it's all about, connecting. And
we can't eat raw if there's no raw food cafes.
Where can people find you, Jeremiah?
You can find me on YouTube, Jeremiah Rebel Music. Facebook, you can just search Jeremiah Rebel Music. My name, Jeremiah Martin, will pop up. It's easier to put because there's a lot of Jeremiah Martins, I'm sure. So yeah, Jeremiah Rebel Music. Put that in Facebook or YouTube. That'll bring me up. And also, I do this whole holistic living website on Facebook. It's called Living on a Higher Vibration, but it also really deals with us reclaiming our own minds, as I talked about in the beginning. And politically, I talk about all types of issues like, chemtrails and vaccinations and everything that some people say, oh, well, covering all that's living on a low vibration. Well, it's like, for me, if we don't face the same issues that are oppressing us and like chemicals in our environment and stuff, if we just hide from them, aren't we teasing ourselves that they're ever going to get any better? So I kind of, a lot of times I'll actually put my neck out there to face these issues that no one else will talk about. But I do it because I feel like someone has to do that, and I don't mind being that person.
And I'll put links in the description below to your sites. So, awesome.
Yeah, you guys know where to find us at livefooddetox.com or livefooddetox@gmail. Yeah, but we would love and look forward to much of your restaurant stuff, and all of your information sounds awesome. Do you have your restaurant name? Is there a place to go to for that as well?
Thank you. I really appreciate that too. Yeah, it's called My Nature. You can check us out on the web at mynatureoc.com. You can check us out on Facebook, My Nature Ocean City. And yeah, we're at 13th on the boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland here. And we're a fully raw vegan healing foods cafe that focuses on wild edibles and connecting back to nature.
Are you open right now?
We're going to open May 16th.
May 16th. Okay.
Perfect
So everybody
time.
get there.
4 days before my birthday. Yay! Great timing, Jeremiah. Great timing. And I hope to come out and see you guys. That would be awesome. So,
Please.
sometime.
We'll have a place for you to stay here.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
You guys have a great day.
Yep. You guys have a great day.
You
See you
too.
later. See
All
you
right,
later, everybody out there in YouTube land and Facebook.
Thanks for having me, Gary. and
Yep.
Angie. See you.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.